Okay, now The Dragon and the Crescent, and that's the title of the lecture, and this can only, of course, be a quick skim through what is quite a substantial book. I'll say nothing about the standard of it, but it is a thick and substantial book. Now, I see we've got the book cover up there. If you look closely, you can see the star and crescent of Islam, embraced by a dragon, and embraced by that beast there. Now, does anyone know where that is? Just a matter of interest. Close, close, yeah, right city. Anyone ever seen that before? I've never asked an audience this before. I just thought it might be worth doing. It's carved above the portico on Cardiff City Hall. So on Cardiff City Hall, they have the four directions, north, south, east and west, the 4 points of the compass, indicated with relief sculptures. This is the one for east. Now it's washed out in that kind of pink colour here. In reality, of course, it's that white Portland stone. And on the one from the east, at the top of it, and if you ever go into Cardiff City Hall, just look up to the right, there it is, Star and Crescent of Islam, embraced by a dragon. Now, I'd actually got the title for the book before I actually realised that the sculpture was there, so it's a happy coincidence of them. I wish I could say that all the material in the book is a story of happy coexistence. It isn't. Now, I get asked a great deal since I've been doing this research. One of the very common questions I get asked is so you've written about the history of Muslim communities in Wales. And I suspect that behind this, I suspect this because of the other supplementary questions that come, is a desire for a narrative of happy coexistence, a desire to hear that the Welsh have been particularly enlightened and kind and welcoming towards Muslims. Now, first of all, the book is not a history of Welsh Muslim communities. There are some records in it. It's a record of literary portrayals of Muslims. Some of those relate to Welsh communities, but it is not a formal history of those communities. And the portrayals which the book contains from the Crusades to the present day are broadly negative. Now, that's the unfortunate but true fact that we have to face with this material. It would be nice if it was all people getting along and intercultural understanding and so on, but sadly it isn't. So I just say this as a kind of trades description thing at the beginning, because I don't want people coming away thinking, oh, I'm going to go away feeling great about how the Welsh treats other countries and then getting depressed when they read the book in the evening and find out the bitter truth. Okay. Now, the other question I get asked about it a lot in those dinner party or conversations that happen when people unwisely ask writers, so what are you working on at the moment? And then the writers, of course, tell them, boy, do they tell them. And I get asked, what are you working on? I say, oh, it's a study of literary portrayals of Muslims in Welsh literature. And they say, oh, so you're interviewing radicals? I say, no, I'm not interviewing anyone. It's not that kind of book. It's not field work. I've not been going out with a clipboard looking for jihadis and asking them why they hate the West. I've not been doing that. And usually the questioner looks disappointed that I haven't done that, because there's this huge interest in Islam as a threat, as something controversial, as a source of tension and danger. Now, I'm sorry to disappoint them. I haven't been doing that kind of field work. However, the question does stem from a common theme through this research, which is that Islam has generally been perceived in negative terms, whether as a source of political oppression or physical danger or terrorism. So there's nothing new in that fascinated question, which is interested in the potential for danger and controversy. And then I've even been asked, and I think this comes from the Welsh desire to hear good things about ourselves from other people. I've been asked if, so have you looked at other cultures, what they've said about Wales? As if, I've kind of scoured the libraries of Cairo looking for references to Wales, and now or any other language. And it would be, again, no, I haven't done that. There's nothing to indicate that there is a body of work sitting there in Baghdad or Cairo to be discovered in which you can find lots of lovely poems saying how nice Wales is and so on. If anyone wants to go off there and research it and write that book, fine. There'd be a ready market for it, I can tell you that much. There would be a ready market for it. But it is not this book. What this book is a record of literary portrayals of Wales and Islam. Now, I have found 200 examples. When I did my book on Wales and the Jewish people, which was again a record of literary portrayal, I found 85 examples there. Now, the reason I found more with Islam is not because I think there are more, but because the research was much more thorough. So I did this research in a very traditional way, mainly in the City Library in Cardiff and the Cardiff University Library, some of it here and some in the British Library. A fair bit online and some of it through private inquiry. But it was very traditional research, working through books, looking for key words. So you're looking for memoirs, and you know, somebody who's been in the First World War, then you'd look to see where they served, and if they said, oh, wedyn mi gyrhaeddais i'r Aifft Gwlad y Ffer as well, and you'd look a bit more closely whether they'd served in Egypt or Palestine, and then there was a chance of finding portrayals of Muslims. Anything with an index was a help, an enormous help. So looking for keywords and this kind of thing. If I came across a memoir which said, you know, I spent all my life on the same farm in Meirionydd, then you know, that quickly went back on the shelf. But there is an extensive Welsh literature, maritime literature, pilgrim literature, missionary literature, literature of empire very, very often, which has a surprising amount in it about encounters with Islam. Indirectly, if anyone wants to write a book about encounters with Hinduism, they could, because I came across plenty of those in Welsh visits to India. But I was looking just for material about Islam. So, what kind of material did I include? I stretched the bounds of literature quite elastically because I wanted to include anything that was sufficiently opinionated to give us an idea about what Welsh people were saying about Islam through the centuries. So it includes travelogues, autobiography, biography, theology, travel guides and reportage. But the crucial factor was that it had to be opinionated. Simply factual things were not worth including. I went for stuff which was opinionated. And what it shows is that the relationship between Wales and Islam is more extensive than it might have been thought. Very often, and I think this is partly the result or partly where this question about Muslim communities comes from, people think contact with Islam is something new. It's something that's come from recent population movements, maybe the last 50 or 60 years or so, and of course actually it isn't. It goes back a lot further, and the bulk of the history of Welsh contact with Islam is not Muslims coming to Wales, it's Welsh people going to Muslim countries. And that's where the bulk of this material comes from. And that is 95% of Welsh history of contact with Muslims is Welsh people going to Muslim countries and doing things which they then write about, rather than the other way around. There's very little, or I've found very little anyway, Muslim literature about Wales. None, I'm afraid, unless I've missed something in foreign languages that I'm aware of, and little in Wales. I'll come to that little towards the end, but there isn't much. Now, among the aims of the book are these: to inform the contemporary debate about Islam and the West in the context of one small European nation, to contribute to the debate about identity within that nation itself, and to provide the Muslim community of Wales with the material for a wider historical context for their experience.